Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. This might be the biggest day we've ever had here at Pack 14 because my hero, my mentor, I'm serious, Brice Stump is with us today. Welcome, Brice Stump.
Thank you, Greg Bassett.
You are the Dean of History and Writing and Recording every important thing that's happened here for 40 years?
40 years. Started with the Daily Times in 1979. Retired in 2015. And I guess my entire life was devoted to the preservation of Eastern Shore culture and history through photography and writing.
And I remember the first time I met this guy, and he doesn't remember it, but I was standing at John Bosman's desk giving him information for a caption for a photo I had taken. And something happened. I missed the news on the scanner, but there was a train derailment in Fruitland. And you jumped up and literally pushed me aside to get to the car to go cover the train derailment in Fruitland. I was like, that's what a newspaper photographer does. This guy is cool. And we've been together ever since.
Yes, and you've helped me a lot through the years.
You've taught me way more.
I don't think so. You've been very kind and helpful. A lot of times, certain things I didn't want to do. As you know, I was the farm editor.
Unbelievable. The most talented photographer and writer in my midst was like editing obituaries.
Yeah, I remember that. Yes.
Let's let Brice do what Brice is good at.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how I ended up doing the obituaries, and I appreciate you covering for me a number of times. But as you know, we had Gary Grossman come on board, and I remember he said, this guy's not going to be writing any more obituaries. And I got back to doing what I was doing.
Yeah. Where did all this start? You came from Dorchester County, but you've always had a love for photography and for telling stories.
Yes, I started when I was 15 years old. I worked as a freelancer when I was 15 for the Daily Banner, which is now the Post.
It's Dorchester Banner.
The Dorchester
It's
Banner.
down to once a week, but yes. It was a 5-day daily then.
Yes. And I worked for the weekly, the Dorchester News, and also did freelance work for the Star Democrat, which was a sister paper of the Dorchester News.
Right.
And I've been paid and been writing, doing photography ever since.
Now, your specialty, I think, is the way you capture people.
Well, thank you.
And it's hard to capture people because people aren't comfortable when they're getting their photo taken, but somehow you build an instant rapport with people. How do you do that?
I guess it's a matter of, I want to treat them the way that I would like to be treated, and I'm aware that they're hesitant, uncomfortable, put on the spot, and I think I mix a combination of common sense with professionalism. If someone says something that is off the cuff and not really representative of what their intent is, I don't embarrass them professionally or in public by quoting that per se. If I'm getting this across clearly to you,
No, I understand.
It isn't that I'm editing what they say. It is I want them to be comfortable and then have a real conversation so they don't feel being put on the spot or awkward.
Right.
And
the other thing you do, I feel like I snap a picture, but you make a picture. Ansel Adams used to say that. I'm going to go make a photo.
well, I appreciate that, Greg, because I know a lot of people say he takes pictures. Well, I don't take pictures. I like to think that I'm doing art. And yes, I spend a lot of time trying to make the person be as best represented as they can in a photograph, aware of whatever facial features or whatever it is that they may not like about themselves. It could be the nose or the hair or the eyes. Of course, they don't come out and say that, but you can pick up on it, I think, pretty fast when you're working with people. But putting people at ease on the when you're taking their picture, I think is as important as the picture itself. You got to make the person feel comfortable.
Right.
And I sure don't want to take pictures that embarrass someone. I've tried really hard to make my pictures have timeless value. And we're going to talk about the book that I just finished recently. But in the body of my work, I tried to take pictures that I knew were important at the time that would transcend time, and they would have a timeless quality about them, a quality about photography that,
Right.
yeah, that touched you.
You know, we've never talked about this, but I do the history column for my paper now, and I go back and I look at old Daily Times. And there was a time in your career where you had to have a front page photo every day for them. They didn't always use it because there would be other news, but you had to have it available to them every day. So you were running around Salisbury taking pictures, everything from kids on swings to kids on sleds to whatever else. And when I look at those photos now, first of all, I'm amazed at how well they're so well composed. They're not snapshots. And how timeless they really are. You have to really look hard at the photo to even figure out what year it was, if that makes any sense.
It does make a lot of sense, and,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that, Greg. And I know a lot of readers from the Daily Times, well, newspapers in general. The photographer, it isn't quite what the public thinks.
Right.
That we have all week long to take that picture. And it's not like that at all. It's 15 minutes. You come in the office in the morning and go out and get us a front page picture. So you ride around looking for a front page picture. And while
these
you're
were black
riding,
and white days too.
black and white, we did our
Yeah.
own printing and developing a film there.
Yeah.
When you're riding around, the clock's still ticking, and you've got to have it in within 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's not to say that every picture I took, today I would be proud to have my name
Yeah,
on.
we were PM paper, so they would start to put the paper together, and things wouldn't develop correctly. And the deadline was 11:30, and at 10:45, Brice, go get us a page one photo. You know, that's hard.
It was very hard. And as a matter of fact, Greg, it was probably if I can use the terminology, it was probably the worst part of my job.
Yeah.
The pressure to come up with a Brice Stump picture in 45 minutes.
Let's say you say a Brice Stump. It's not going to be like a photo that I would take. It's a Brice Stump picture.
Yes. I've always said if my name is going to be on it, I want it to be right. And I still believe that. Right. And of course, at the time when I was growing up, Greg, and as a farm boy in Dorchester County, and we would get that Baltimore Sun.
Yeah.
What was it called? That section that came in on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
The red section or
Yeah.
the brown section.
Yeah.
I saw those photographs and I was mesmerized because I just thought it was absolutely incredible. And as a matter of fact, I think I've told you this before, that I credit my career with having been generated, or what do I call it that?
Yeah.
Motivated by the work of Aubrey Bodine. You know, and even to this day, I would like to take a picture that I would feel that Aubrey Bodine would like to have taken too. Now, I've seen some of Aubrey Bodine's books, and there are some pictures in there that I wouldn't want my name on.
Right.
But not everything we take is a showstopper. And when I first came to work at the Daily Times, Mel Toadvine, the editor, told me that at the time. Every picture you take is not going to be an award winner. And there's a lot of truth to that. And the public, as I said earlier, may not appreciate that we don't have a week to take a picture, or 2 days, or in a full day. It has to be done on the spot. You go on location, never been there before, you don't know what you're going to be coming up against,
Right.
but you got to come back with a quality photo package. Yeah, if you can be a successful, competent, award-winning news photographer, you can handle just about anything.
But you, sir, you're able to listen to people and tell their stories, and you have a way of getting people to tell you things and building a comfort with them that they never would. Your Skipjack book, which we'll talk about, when I go down there and get around those guys and try to write about them or talk about them, they look at me very suspiciously. You know, I'm from Ironshire. You know, I'm just like you, but they don't trust me. But somehow, they're willing to completely trust you. How does that happen?
I don't know, but I know this sounds egotistical, but I am good at it, and I pride myself on being good at it. I want to be a good listener, and I want to establish eye contact with people, and I want to be disarming. I do not want to go down there in a shirt and tie. I want to be one of the guys, and I think people feel a lot more comfortable when they're in their own element.
Yeah.
I take a lot of pride in being able to successfully do an interview, Greg, and meet people, even when I'm not working. If you meet people socially, I take great pride in being able to take all the experience I've had of a lifetime and make someone feel part of the conversation, that they're part of a social element, they're involved, and I like that. I like people to feel important, and I do not want to do anything to embarrass an individual.
Your last book, the Somerset County book, what was it called?
Unforgettable Treasures.
Right. Cover was it was in color, but it was a skipjack crew.
Yes.
And it's funny because I remember seeing the photos around the one that was on the cover that you'd taken. And these guys are kind of lackadaisical and they're kind of goofing off on the boat. And you wanted to get a really good picture. And the captain, who just recently passed, didn't he?
Captain Art Daniels.
Art Daniels said, "All right, boys, this one's for Brice for future, for history." And they all stood up straight and they got the right looks on their face. And you captured that moment. And it's a moment that'll never happen again. But those guys have that. We have that.
What key element in this book that's so much different than what I did for the Daily Times, because I was a features photographer, most of the stuff that I did, by its very nature, had to be set up.
Right. It could be like women standing in front of a church and pointing to the church, but you took the one of the Whitehaven Church with the red doors, and however the women were dressed, and beautiful photo. I mean, I would never see a photo like that. I would snapshot it. Just the doors, the vertical nature of it, it's just amazing.
Yeah, well, that lent itself to an artistic interpretation, other than just the nuts and bolts. You've got to get a picture of the man, the church in the background, because that's the two elements you're talking about.
Right.
That was, to pull that off successfully, week after week and year after year, for all the years we were working together, you had to be really creative and innovative on how to take a nuts and bolts picture, but to make it look really artistic and good. That was the challenge, but it was always set up to a degree. I mean, obviously there's some things that you had to take that were, you took, like if you would at Chesapeake Shipyard just recently, you took those pictures as they happened.
Right.
But for the most part, the feature work that I did and the history work that I did involved a lot of setting up photographs. The picture that you just mentioned about Daddy Art Daniels, or Daniel, that was such a surprise to me, because I went to get my camera and he said, "Come on, boys, we're going to take this picture for Brice." And when I turned around, the picture that you saw on the cover of the book is exactly as they stood. I turned around and there they were. And everything was perfect about the setup. So I was very lucky there, because I'm dealing with people who are not used to being photographed. Maybe Daddy Art is, but not the crew. So it was surprising to see them just fall into line to make this picture work.
Summer '79, Governor Tawes died, Miller Tawes.
Yes.
And you covered his funeral.
Yes.
And the day before the funeral, you went down to the big church in Crisfield, and you were upstairs there. We've never talked about this. You were upstairs there. And I only know about this because I went in the dark room behind you, and you had left some photos in there that you weren't going to use. And one was Governor Tawes in his casket, dressed up perfectly to a T. You took it from the balcony upstairs. And it's him all alone in this beautiful church with the flowers. And what got me, I mean, there's something maudlin about it, but at the same time, you had rapport with a dead guy in a photo. I mean, you were able to capture this man. The last photo ever taken of him, if you think about it that way, it was remarkable. I mean, it was just, and I don't think it ever appeared in print anywhere.
No, it didn't. I gave a number of pictures to then Governor Harry Hughes. He came down for the funeral. The picture you're talking about, Greg,
now I might remember it all wrong too.
No,
yeah.
no, you've got it 100%.
Yeah.
I took that picture really for me, because how many times do you get to see the governor, the former governor of the state of Maryland, in a church completely empty with just flowers and this beautiful stained glass windows?
Yeah. Oh, the windows are, amazing. Yeah.
And it was just it was a good picture. He was a hometown boy. And
who made it good.
Who made it good.
And you could tell that from the photo. It was just incredible. Just incredible.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to tell you a picture that I missed, and to this day I regret missing it. There was 2 pictures that I regret missing. One is when Barbara Mikulski was at UMES and the crab jumped up and bit her.
That was a smart crab.
Well, who expected the crab to jump out and grab Barbara? Barbara's finger. The second shot was, I believe, was Agnew and Mrs. Agnew were there for Governor Tawes' funeral.
Yeah.
And it was just the three of us walking down the street. They were going from the parking lot to the church. And former Governor Agnew,
Vice President Agnew,
yes,
yeah.
Vice President Agnew, said something rather witty. Wife wasn't entertained by it,
Yeah.
and took a rolled up newspaper and was banging him on the head with it. I know they're impromptu pictures, but you didn't expect her to be publicly chastising her husband with a newspaper. I'm sorry I missed those two pictures. They would have been fun pictures.
All right, so the Skipjack book, there's nothing staged in this book. This is all shot live. I mean...
Okay, let me correct you. There are 650 photographs in the book.
Yeah.
About 10 of them may be staged. And they only had to be staged because we wanted to get a shot of the crew as a grouping or a father and son team. But I had to do something in this book that was never done before.
All black and white.
All black and white. This was a big deal with me. I wanted black and white because this is the medium in which most of the skipjack history was captured for years, from 1900, 1910, 5, 15, 20, right on through. And it works so well with this subject. I knew that it had to be all in black and white. There are 350 pages, 650 photographs, about 60,000 words. And yes, there are some typos, which we won't go into today. It happens, okay? It's a fact of life. But the importance of this book are the photographs. I was stunned that there has never been a book
Nothing. I've
on
never seen...
skipjacks.
Yeah.
Ever. I just can't believe it. It's the official Maryland State boat. It's the icon of the Chesapeake Bay. Everybody and brother loves skipjacks, and there's no definitive book
Right.
on skipjacks out there. This posed so many technical challenges. I had to go every day. I had to go early in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Every time I was on the phone with him, he would go, I got to leave now. I have to go to Deal Island. And I was like, if you don't want to talk to me, you don't have to talk to me. But he was really going to Deal Island every day.
Every day. This was the most, and you know, being in the newspaper business, Greg, realistically, there's stress. I know the reader can't relate to that, but there's professional stress in the professional world. And this was no exception. This book at one point was literally changing my life because of the enormous pressure to get it right. Because it was going to be the first book, I wanted it right, and I did not want to make do or good enough pictures. I wanted the pictures to be good.
Yeah.
I wanted to be Brice Stump pictures as much as possible. Obviously, some are nuts and bolts pictures. They are what they are. But when it had an opportunity to be artistic, I really tried to be artistic in it.
In reading it, I've finally gone through it closely. I learned so much because I thought they still dredged oysters under sail, and they only used the push boat when there was no wind or there was some kind of a problem. I thought when they would drag, they would bring up like a bushel every time. Not that way at all.
Not that way at all. They haven't used sail in almost 18 years. The day that I was out, I was on several of these skipjacks doing this project. They would throw out a dredge and pull it up. It'd be packed full of shells. There might be 6 or 8 legal oysters in it. And they would tell the captain each time they would pull up the dredge, we got 6 or we got 5. And then that way he would try to fine tune how he was turning the boat over an oyster ground so he could get into where an area that may not have been overworked before.
Right.
But it is slow, it is hard work, it is not for everyone.
It's winter.
It is winter, it is cold, it is dangerous. The area that they're working on that boat is probably a fifth of the size of most people's kitchen. You got the winders, you got the cabin, you got the wheel, you got the bowsprit, you've got the hatch cover, you've got a lot of things that are in your way. You've got the dredges coming up and down. The guys are doing this literally every 6
fall overboard,
minutes.
you're dead.
Yes. Oh yes. Yes.
Dredge comes up every 6 minutes. They dump it on the deck. They fall down on their hands and knees and sort through this stuff
As fast as they can go.
because the other dredge is down.
Yes.
On each side.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes, they're alternate. They
Right.
pull them up. The guys have to go sort through the coal shells, or what do they call them?
Right.
Empty the boxes, which are
Because
dead
oysters grow on top of other oyster
Yes,
shells.
right.
Yeah.
Right, and not all are legal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems with them. Like I say, they're boxes, which are dead oysters, but you can't really tell it till you go through it sometimes. And the guys have got to work really fast because they have got to get the dredge overboard as fast as possible because they're only getting 6 to 8, 10 oysters in a dredge. And they have to clear that deck. As soon as they empty it, they throw it over, they're on their hands and knees, going through all this mud and what they call the beard, that red beard growth that's on there. They're going through all that, trying to find marketable oysters, but they've got about a 6-minute window.
And every minute of what they are doing is documented in these photos. From when they arrive at the boat in the middle of the night till it's Miller time at the end. It's just really compelling.
Most people have never seen a push boat in action. And the push
I've
boat,
never seen it.
The push boat is the workhorse that powers the skipjack. They don't use the sails anymore. Just a little bit of trivia: most skipjack crews are incapable of dredging with under a sail power. They don't have the expertise. They're too young, or have not had it in 18 years. They've not had opportunities to become experienced oystermen working with sail.
Now, the Crisfielders will tell you that it's a bad way to oyster. They don't like the skipjacks. They'd rather tong. Any thoughts about that?
It's really hard on your back, Greg, getting up and down every 6 minutes, pushing oysters and calling. It's a dangerous job. I think you saw in the book that the cable is literally under the man's chin.
And there's photos where the winch failed, so they're pulling it up by hand. It's like 300 pounds, 600 pounds?
600-700 pounds, depends on what's in the dredge and the depth. The cable, the steel cable that goes from the winder to the dredge, 75 feet below, it goes right under the guy's chin. It's under tremendous strain. It's pulling up all that weight. And it's a cable, it's not much bigger than your little finger. So when I first saw it, I thought, that's not the job for me. If the cable were to break, it certainly isn't inconceivable he could be decapitated. So it's a dangerous job.
But somehow, in all this, you've managed to make it look romantic. I mean, there's something really compelling. Like, that'd be a fun job, even though I know it's not. It looks like it'd be fun.
You know,
and it's probably part of who we are, I guess.
I'm glad you brought that up about the romanticism of the skipjack and the crew. There's an element there. But most of the guys do not see romance in it. There are days out there that are absolutely gorgeous. I was out there with them. It is a fantastic day. Like one of the guys in the book said, if we weren't out here today, we'd be home arguing with a wife and girlfriend. But out here, it's just us guys in this beautiful day.
Yeah.
There is elements to be appreciated, but romance, I don't think so. I'm glad you used that word to characterize some pictures in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you're an armchair waterman, it does look inviting.
Right.
But if you have to do it in real life, it's not so good. The captains always struggle to get a crew. Greg, if you look at the book, there's one guy that's in this picture, and he's on this boat, and then he's on this boat. And I thought, how can this guy be on this many boats? Because most of them have a set crew that work with them throughout the entire season. J.R. Rosetta. Whenever I would go out on another boat, he was on the dredge boat working. When I was on the boat, he was on the boat, and I was taking his picture. I said, how could this be? He positions himself so that if they can only go out 2 days with the push boat.
Yeah.
If a captain goes out Monday and Tuesday, there's 3 days that the other boats might be able to go out.
Right.
They did not go out on Monday and Tuesday. So JR is always floating. He's always on the swing, the loop. He will get a job on one of the boats to go out on a Wednesday, and maybe one goes out on a Friday, which is very good for him.
Yeah.
Because these guys can still make good money.
How can we get the book?
I really want whatever commission money to stay in the community. So $10 for every book that is sold through Scott's Cove Marina and Lucky's, the Skipjack Heritage Foundation. I'll be at the Skipjack race Labor Day.
Labor Day?
Yes. $10 out of every book I sell is donated to the Skipjack Heritage Foundation to keep this legacy going as long as possible. Right. I want the money to benefit local organizations. I initially entertained church groups selling it for the benefit of the church, fire departments selling it, especially small hometown village volunteer fire departments, to help them. I want the money to stay local. And that's important. That's very important to me.
And it's more of a choice for you. It's not a moneymaker situation. You're at a point in your life where you can afford to do this kind of thing with your time.
That's true, Greg.
You're not on a daily deadline anymore, so you can explore things in a different way.
Yes, and it is a self-published book.
Yeah.
And with all self-published projects, it seems that if you get your money back, you're successful.
Right.
And this is no exception. This is probably the most expensive thing I think to date I've ever bought, was the investment in publishing this book. I would like to get my money back. But yes, this is my contribution to the watermen of Deal Island. I really like the hospitality that they've shown me in their friendship. I had an opportunity to do something nice for them, and I seized upon it and did this book. But I wanted to do the book because this can't last forever. This skipjack, working on the bay, oystering, this can't last forever with skipjacks. It's just, and I think most of the captains know that. That's why there's not being any new skipjacks made.
Yeah.
They can cost up to $500,000. The Catherine costs $350,000 to restore. It takes a lot of oysters to pay for that. So I don't know how much longer this can go on, but I'm really glad that I did this book when I did. Just in 16 months, we've lost Captain Daddy Art Daniel at 95, he died. We've lost Frank Horner, who worked on the skipjack with his brother, owned one. We've lost Zeke Taylor, a 52-year-old
Yeah,
woman.
he was a young guy. Yeah.
Young guy, he died. We had another guy who died, unfortunately, of a drug overdose. I'm glad I did this when I did. I think it was meant to be. I really believe that. I know it sounds mystical and maybe surreal.
It matches everything you've done in your career. I mean, it makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everything about the photograph end of this thing, the photography end of this book, worked out so well that many a time I said to myself, how can this be working out this well so many times? And I just really believe with all my heart, this was meant to be. This was my contribution to save this element like it's never been photographed before.
What an honor to have Brice Stump here today.
Thank you, Greg Bassett.
Thank you. Brice Stump, he's unbelievable. He's given his life, really, to telling stories about all of us. It just makes me feel great to read everything that he does. So anyway, I'm Greg Bassett for the Salisbury Independent Newspaper, another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.